Hello friends, myself Lakanwai Meena, Assistant Professor English from Government College Chamela, Jhalawar. You are welcome on my YouTube channel. Today we will study the poem of G.M. Hopkins, The Sigh and the Skylark. Today we will study the half poem of it. We want to know about G.M. Hopkins before reading the poem. Let's see the introduction of the poet. Gerard Manley Hopkins was born in a middle-class family in 1844. He was educated at Balliol College, Oxford. He was the pupil of Jove and Peter Bruges and Dalrymple among his friends. Coventry Pettigrew became a close friend in his later life. He was a disciple of Percy and Lydon. After his conversion in 1886 to the Church of Homo Human, he entered the Jesuit novitiate in 1868. The eldest child of middle-class family, Hopkins was educated at Highgate and later went to Oxford, where he came under the influence of the Oxford movement and John Henry movement. His religious background was high church. In order to please his mother, Bible reading had become a habit with him. In 1866, at the age of 22, he converted to Roman Catholicism. 2 years later, he joined the Jesuit Society in 1877, was obtained to priesthood. Intellectually bright and courteous, he had wide-ranging interests which perhaps could not be best used by the Jesuit Society. Hopkins spent a lifetime in a situation of conflict and self-inflicted attempts to discipline his intellectual vigor. He felt that his poetic ability was contrary to his priestly duties and that this activity would not win him the approval of his superiors. In 1884, Hopkins was appointed to the chair of Greek at Dublin University. He was a poet of much originality and a skillful innovator in rhythm. He wrote a number of short poems which were collected after his death by Robert Bridges, who published a small selections from them in Miles Poets and Poetry of the Century. A practically complete edition of his poems was published in 1918. He was reissued with some additions in 1930. Hopkins today is regarded as one of the major poets in the realm of English poetry. Although his influence is more technical than spiritual, yet his acute sensibility to beauty, his original metaphors, and his sincerity cannot be denied. The Trapper Leaves writes the bent of his genius was so strong that we are forced to believe that his experimenting would have taken much the same lines even if there had been no Shakespeare. Hopkins belongs to Shakespeare, Eliot, opposed to Spenser, Milton, and Tennyson. Mr. A. C. Ward, in his review of 20th century literature, observes the young poets of the new generation felt strongly the influence not only of Eliot but also that of an earlier poet, Gerard Manley Hopkins. Hopkins was a technical innovator with much intellectual complexity, which of itself appealed to young minds almost despairingly conscious of the complexity of the civilization into which they were born and of which they desired to be interprets to the message. Hopkins' poetry belongs to modernism. In more than one way, it belongs to modernism on the basis of its subject matter, its use of language, and the experimentation in rhythm and syntax. The individualism of Ginsberg is an objective individualism. If one may coin the phrase, for it is very different from the subjective emotionalism of the Romantics. It anticipates the Newton theory of impersonality. There is a questioning of the relationship of God to man and man to nature. This questioning is underlined by doubt and tension, which is turn expressed in the compressed syntax and the sprung rhythm. He evolved to suit his thought. Sprung rhythm did not adhere to any conventional metrical feet. Instead, it allowed the words to create their own rhythm. Very often, a coined new words use archaic or colloquial expressions to meet this requirement. This rhythm permitted him greater flexibility. Among Hopkins' most characteristic pieces are the Wreck of the Druids Land and the Windover. The notebooks edited by H. House have been published. These notebooks contain valuable and interesting passages. These letters, which are very valuable and interesting, have been edited by C. Abbott. Hopkins was a religious poet who saw God's glory in the beauty and splendor of nature, but his last poems, which are called the Terrible Sonnets, were written at a time when he was physically, mentally ill. They convey a sense of gloom and despair. Now let's see the introduction of the poem. The Sigh and Skylark is one of the lesser known poems. Felix Rendell and the Windover are extremely well known. The Sigh and the Skylark, however, does reflect several of the qualities of Hopkins' poetry. His poem was written in 1877 in a seaside town a few miles from St. Bruno's College. Hopkins lived there for about 3 years to complete his theological studies. In this poem, the Sigh and the Skylark are contrasted with men whose deterioration seems to the poet evident in a tasteless seaside town. It is in standard rhythm, in parts sprung and in others counterpointed. This poem is a sonnet, and the poetry of the titles is between water and air. The Sigh and the Skylark, representative of nature. The body of the poem, more especially in the last lines, introduces a third point of reference: earth inhabited by man. The poet makes very subtle use of repetition like air and air, make and making, break or breaking, and of alliteration throughout the poem.